Welcome back. This is On the Money with Ryan Wheelis, financial advisor, the founder of Allied Wealth. If you're listening to us on the radio, you're like, welcome back for what? I haven't gone anywhere. But for our YouTube followers, we've been doing an entire series on some of these retirement blind spots. I can't let it go, though, on the $1 million. I think one of the blind spots is us doing mental math. I've heard about the 4% rule. I know you and I have talked about it on television and radio before, but here's the thing. The 4% rule is based on $1 million, Ryan, right? It's supposed to be that if you got $1 million and it earns, I forget exactly what the number was, but it was something like 5 or 6 or 7%. And you draw out 4%. It should last about 30 years, okay? But it doesn't factor in things like tax brackets, doesn't factor in what your monthly earnings are, what those investment costs are. I'm not a big fan of the simplification of 4% rules and stuff like that. Or do you think it's a good baseline? How about you? Do you look at percentages like that?
The guy that wrote the 4% rule was even come out and said it's actually more you can do. By the way, I believe he said it's closer to 5%. But nonetheless, man, it's like, look, you got to be careful, because if you're focusing on that, you're going to have $1 million. It's going to be in a balanced portfolio in the stock market: 50% stocks, 50% bonds. Using the Vanguard VBI Index Fund, okay, for instance, that's a 60-40 index fund of 60% stocks, 40% bonds, all right? So you have the money in that. Well, the drawdown on that portfolio or that fund is well diversified, by the way, okay? 500 stocks, bonds, whole 9 yards, right? So, but I think I want to say it's about 29%, if I remember correctly. So if you got $1 million and you're pulling out 4%, that's $40,000. $1 million down 30% to $700,000. Well, 4% of $700,000 is $28,000. So your income just went from $40,000 a year down to $28,000 a year because the market went down. So if you kind of have that 4%, 5% mentality mindset, what it tells me a lot of times is you're really going to have your money in the stock market, which there's nothing wrong with having some money in the stock market by all means. But you're also setting yourself up to allow what happens in the stock market to dictate the quality of life that you live in your golden years. And that's kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
Because you hear all kind of stuff. The markets are rigged and the markets don't work anymore because the Fed's doing what it's doing. The markets don't work anymore. AI is going to be worth $1 gazillion. And then, you hear all these things. But all this is purely speculative in nature. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So, it just makes a lot more sense, Spike, if you've got the $1 million and you're going to look at, a retirement plan, buy some income, invest the rest. Buy some income, invest the rest. How do you buy income? You can buy into things like, treasury bonds that are long-term. You can buy annuities. You can buy real estate. A lot of different ways you can do it, but you want to buy income and then invest the rest. And that way, you're not in a situation to where if the market goes down from $1 million in value down to $700,000, that your income goes down because you bought your income or invested for income purposes only, mm-hmm. and then use the rest of your money to invest in other places for growth and inflation and long-term care, hedges and in vacations and other stuff like that, right? But just make sure you've got a baseline that's there for you regardless of what happens with the stock market, with the economy, or interest rates. You'll hear me say that over and over and over again. Yeah.
And one of the blind spots I would really like to focus on here is also taxes, in that in doing the 4% rule, I kept looking all along, and when I found out, I actually went to the place where they published the study, said, no, the 4% rule on $1 million does not factor in, what if that $1 million is all in a tax-deferred account or tax-deferred accounts? Look, you don't get that spending power. You got to pay taxes first.
If you've got $1 million in your IRA, how much of it is yours?
Well, I've learned from you, but whatever my tax bracket is, I don't know, so $750, maybe?
Whatever your tax bracket is, right? If you pulled it all out, and in today's tax brackets, it'd be around probably about a 30% effective tax rate. So it's the amount of money you have in that portfolio minus your effective tax rate. That's how much money is yours. And I believe very strongly that taxes in this country will very likely be your biggest expense in retirement. Potentially even more than healthcare, Spike, even more than healthcare. But think about it. They introduced the 401k to the Internal Revenue Code back in 1978. Do you know what the debt level in this country was in 1978?
I actually know there was a time in the 90s when the books were balanced. So 70s, I don't know. I don't know that one.
78. It wasn't much at all. Okay. Today it's $36 trillion. Okay, and we're adding $1 trillion in debt every 100 days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how does the government get money to pay its bills?
Taxes.
Only one way: taxes. Well, they borrow money too. More money they can, that's a whole other conversation. But they borrow money and they tax.
You were simplifying for our radio listener. We're trying not to drive people off the road right now.
Yeah, they're taxing us to death. So the bottom line is we're in I believe the third best tax environment in U.S. history, yet we are $36 trillion in debt. And yet so many of our folks that are listening to us right now have the majority of their life savings in tax-infested retirement accounts, meaning every dollar that comes out is 100% taxable at ordinary income tax rates. And they're sitting there doing plans. Hey, I've got my $1 million. I've made it. No, you don't. You don't. Because if 20 cents on every dollar goes to Uncle Sam, you have $800,000, and that's yours to live on. All right, and that's the reality. So it's super important, Spike, to factor in taxes in a big way, and I think people need to know this a lot sooner in life. Do not invest all of your money for retirement purposes in a retirement account, folks. Don't do it. You have no tax control. You have no mechanisms to reduce the amount of money you pay Uncle Sam, and no mechanisms to keep more of your money in your hard-earned pocket if you're only saving in those tax-infested retirement accounts. So here's an example. If you get a 401k match, put the money in the 401k equal to the match, folks. It's 100% return on your money. Even if you put it in the stable value fund for your investment choice, you're still going to get 100% return on the dollars you put in. That's a no-brainer. But once you've done that, strongly consider saving outside of the 401k. There's a lot of different ways to do that. You can do Roth, sure. You can do conversion, sure. But you can save outside in a taxable brokerage account. You can do cash value life insurance. You can do Roth plans. You can do all kind of stuff outside of a tax-invested retirement account. But if you're doing that in a way earlier in life than later in life, and it's not too late to start doing it now if you're getting ready to retire, by the way.
Let's say 50s. We got that Gen X that's coming up on retirement.
Even 55, even 60, you can still do it, right? But make sure the composition of your accounts is not so lopsided that Uncle Sam owns more of your retirement dollars than you think he does.
Okay. Factoring in everything from $1 million to our taxes to longevity. These are some of the retirement blind spots. Is there anything that folks can do, though, if they've got that $1 million or $500,000 or whatever it is in their tax-deferred retirement accounts? You say be aware. Okay, well, we weren't for 3 decades. We weren't for 4 decades. We've been saving in there. What can they do now with those tax-deferred accounts?
Spike, it depends, because you could start trying to do Roth IRA conversions in your 401k now, right? There's ways to do that. Does it make sense to do it now while your earnings are higher? Does it make sense, by the way, to put money in the Roth 401k today while you're working and your income's high, not take advantage of the tax deduction you get for putting money in the 401k? So you're actually paying higher taxes now while you're working. Or does it make sense to keep putting in your 401k, get the tax deduction, and do Roth conversions once you retire when your income's potentially lower? That's a question. Does it make sense to start saving outside of retirement accounts? That's a question, right? Oftentimes it does. And a lot of times, Spike, when I've got somebody who's 59 and a half, maybe wants to work to 65 for healthcare reasons, Medicare obviously at 65, I may tell them, hey, listen, I want you to ratchet down your 401k savings. And I want you to get the company match. But outside of that, yes, you're going to pay some more taxes now. I want you to have some money available outside of your retirement accounts in a brokerage account or a savings account for cash purposes. Because, Spike, think about this. If I want to go buy a car, all right, and I am going to buy that car, and let me see here. Let me do quick math here, folks. Not texting here, by the way. I wouldn't do that on the show. But, let's say I'm buying a car for $50,000. All right, and let's say my effective tax rate is 20% in retirement. Okay, I've got to pull out $62,500 out of my account, okay, to buy the car. So I paid $50,000 for the car, yet because of the taxes I had to pay, I had to take out $62,500 to pay taxes. Well, if you had some money outside of your retirement accounts in a brokerage account, even in a Roth IRA, you might be able to take those dollars out to pay for that car and not encounter that huge tax hit. Now, what that's going to do, by the way, folks, is that tax hit is going to be $62,500 added to all the other income you have in retirement, and you're ultimately going to pay more taxes on those dollars too. So it's a domino effect. And the composition of account, Spike, is just one of the biggest blind spots we see by a mile.
Big, huge blind spots, and that's what we talked about on today's entire program. For our video series here on YouTube, we'll continue to do other blind spots, but even more importantly, you can come into the office. So I'll give out the phone number. You tell them about the retirement flight plan, 844-944-7555 for our radio listeners. If you don't have time, or if you're driving, if you've got the kids, if you got family, if you got errands, just dial the phone number right now so you've got it in your phone, 844-944-7555. We'll schedule that appointment for you, or retirenowhouston.com. What exactly is the financial flight plan, Ryan?
Hey, Spike, we look at all the elements associated with financial planning for retirement purposes, and we put you on a path to success so that you can go out and enjoy money in retirement in your golden years, even spending money in retirement in your golden years, because you've earned the right to, right? So be able to go out and spend money with confidence, regardless of what happens with the stock market, what happens with interest rates, what happens with the economy, with the news, with the presidential elections. It doesn't matter, because you've taken the time to plan properly, just like we do every single time we put an airplane into the sky.
Ryan, thank you for your time today. You've been listening to On the Money. Ryan Wheelis, financial advisor, the founder of Allied Wealth, offices all around the Texas area. But if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a call. We can set up a phone call. We can talk to you anywhere around the country. We'd be glad to help you get started on your own, no cost, financial flight plan.